Oh, wow. So we're actually going to do this.
Yeah, it's going to be a time. It's going to be fun, though. I guess I need to act like I'm
professional.
I don't even do that when we record it.
A little bit of
that. Yeah, the frontward hat doesn't work well for me. I guess. Do I need to do my usual?
We've got Chris watching. He's on.
Do I need to? Hey, Chris. I guess. Do I need to do my usual?
We've got Chris watching.
Do I need to do my usual vocal practice? Do re mi fa sol la ti do.
Oh, yeah.
I do a lot of weird things before we start every show.
Just a few, but hey, that's what happens to us all, right?
I know, right? The show must go on. Just won't let me play my startup music, but if you go to my Facebook page and look at the Goo Goo Doll song, then you will see what my warm-up music was today.
Chris says he's got a pizza coming.
Can you share?
Yeah,
I'm like a Ninja Turtle. You tell me you got pizza, I'm coming.
Oh man, we'll start at 7.
Yeah, that's fine. You gotta pop my knees.
Oh man, so we've got 2 viewers now.
Good loose, foot loose. Kick off your Sunday shoes.
Oh man,
Gotta get super cereal in here.
Yeah, everyone that is watching this, just please excuse Jamie.
Please understand that I have a warm-up period before we start every show. Since we're doing this from live, that 5 minutes is cutting into my warm-up period.
He's not kidding.
I'm not kidding. Like, y'all think I'm joking. I'm not joking. Now, before the camera starts rolling, you're going to see the switch that Justin sees every day. And this is why I'm very dependent upon Justin. God, now it's stuck in my head. Footloose.
See, there you go again.
Kick off your Sunday shoes.
You're just killing me.
And I don't want to go home right now.
Oh man. So well, I guess let's go ahead and kick this one off.
Let's get started.
All right. And welcome to Conservative Talk.
And it's Omnibus or Bust.
And Jamie and I are going to discuss the grimy grimes trade as well.
And it's time we get serious about our border because it really needs defending. And we're going to tell you why.
And we've got a little bit of a local issue here in Northwest Georgia that Jamie and I are going to break down. And that is it's mining, not drilling.
And Buck in the conspiracy corner, Buck says it's time that we actually have a conversation about Biden's super ultra fabulistic expialidocious interracial gay marriage rights bill. I don't know.
You forgot inclusive.
I mean, I think we covered all our bases. I don't know what we're doing here, Buck.
Welcome to the first Conservatives Talk Live. And as always, welcome to Conservatives Talk. And we always like to start off with saying, my name's Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And we always like to make sure that we encourage our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the content they run across on any of the platforms that they do see any of our content produced on, as well as hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll always stay up to date on any of the content that Jamie and I do produce, and you will always be able to see Jamie's incredible smiling face and hear that roaringly infectious laughter.
It gives me some satisfaction.
We also like to encourage our viewers to go to conservativestalk.org and hit that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and help us out with what you're able to, because every little bit goes an incredibly long way towards allowing Jamie and I to continue to be able to produce this content as well as eventually take over the world.
Say that too. You say that too much. They'll start to take you seriously.
Well, they should. That is the dream. Jamie, would you like to start with your first reminder?
Yes, boycott hometown headlines. Like, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for continue to move forward with this. Like, this is something that we need to just get rid of completely out of Northwest Georgia. This guy's a loon. And thank you, and continue to boycott hometown headlines.
Oh, yes. Yes. And would you like to give your second reminder?
It has been 36 glorious days until we laid Stacey Abrams to rest. Out in the pasture.
I can literally. It just occurred to me what you just said.
I try to sneak that in. Justin gets mad when I don't do this. This is why we have to record.
Again, this is why we pre-record.
I say things I shouldn't, like lay to rest or out to the pasture or.
Well, out
to the pasture is fine because, whatever.
Yeah, I can imagine her out in the pasture chewing cud, but laying her, come on, James.
It's the same thing.
No. Oh, man. You're killing me, Jamie.
I have no filter. I don't care.
A little bit of that.
I hit a steel trailer going 45 miles an hour, so clearly I'm not in my right mind,
A little bit of head damage there. And with talking about Jamie's head damage, we do like to say a quick thank you to our affiliates, and that is our first one being Net News Network. So make sure you're going to netnewsnetwork.net and checking out all of the grassroots content producers that really fuel an on-the-ground perspective of everything that's going on in their local regions. And you can really get a very firsthand experience or firsthand perspective of what these producers are really seeing and putting together and putting out there.
Absolutely.
And we also like to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First. So Veterans for America First is a political grassroots organization that fights tooth and nail to ensure that America remains the greatest country in the world. And they do that through their media arm, and their media arm being Vet Voice. So Vet Voice is where you'll find all of the America First content producers that put out everything. You'll see things from Trump's speeches that he does in Mar-a-Lago. You'll see everyone that, or you'll see these content producers going to events where there are legislators or even big political figures that are putting out their message and really emphasizing and pushing the America First policy. So make sure you're looking for Vet Voice on any social media platform that you'll find out there, any major social media platform. You can find them on YouTube, Getter, Twitter. I think they got a Twitter handle now. You can find them on Facebook, everything. So just make sure you're looking for Vet Voice with that.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. True Social, absolutely. So with that in mind, Jamie, let's jump right into our first topic, and that being is Omnibus or bust.
Yeah, I have a real issue with this, and I think it's better that we give our listeners a little bit of background before we start going into the details of this, because this is becoming a real problem. And from my bureaucrat handle, we'll kind of explain a little bit of this.
Yes. So we do have the bureaucrat man that comes on it from time to time. But so with this, so the Democrats are really pushing for, and even Republicans in the Senate, which infuriates me to no end, because they know that they have the option of really stopping a lot of this stuff that they're trying to push through. But you're really seeing a lot of essentially what is this massive spending bill that's being pushed through. It is what is known as a must-pass bill. It's the entire fiscal year funding for 2023. And it's being forced on the incoming legislators for Congress for 2023, even though the Democrats are going to lose the House.
And so there's a couple of reasons why I have a problem with this, right? One of the biggest ones being that in no other form of government can a outgoing elected body bound a duly elected body to any kind of budgetary processing, anything of that nature. And so except for Congress, apparently. Okay.
Obviously.
The other thing that I have a problem with this is that this whole notion is coming out of the Senate, and they're trying to lead the omnibus through the Senate when the House is the one who has all the purchasing strings.
Yes.
So the House is the one who does all the appropriation, all the budget stuff, and then it goes to the Senate. But for the first time in history of government, almost ever, the Senate is being the one who's going to push this bill forward and then try to have the House sign off on it.
Well, the House passed a vehicle that would allow for it to be expedited as well, because they know that they technically are supposed to be coming out of session on, I believe it's Friday. And then once they hit that wall, they're having to pass what is known as a CR, a continuing resolution, because the entire United States government is going to stop being funded on Friday.
And if a lot of people remember, this is one of the things that when President Trump was in office, this is one of the things that he was like, no, we need to get a handle on this. And he actually shut the government down for what was like almost 2 months.
Oh yeah.
And, yes. and it's because you only have situations like this because you will not go to a balanced budget. And once again, we have seen to where the Democrats in Congress have not allowed for a balanced budget to go through. They continue to increase the spending. And because they know that Republicans are going to come in and, basically try to get as close as we can now to a balanced budget, they want to pass as much as they can beforehand. Mm-hmm. And they're willing to change the rules of everything in order to do it.
Well, I mean, they do have that prerogative of at least in the difference between federal and state and local of the budgetary aspect, or not being able to bind an incoming an incoming legislative body and binding them to that, because they can make their own rules per the Constitution.
Yeah, and that the power of the sovereign, right? Like, your rules don't apply when you're the sovereign.
Yes. So this CR, or this continuing resolution, will be for funding the government for an additional week to allow these budgetary riders or these, I'm going to go and call them what they are. They're bureaucrats. They're the hill rats that live up there that write these things and push them down the American people's throats, even though they are the unelected body up in DC. And it's going to fund the government for another week. And then during that week, that will allow for this additional CR for an entire year to be written. So you won't have to worry about not only a government shutdown, but according to the appropriations chairman in the Senate, it would keep the ability for Republicans who are going to be controlling the House from interrupting governmental services.
And to your point, I just have to say this, right? This has always been my argument against term limits, because though I understand the purpose of what everyone wants to go, and before I get, backlash again, though I understand where everyone's going with term limits.
Where's my knife?
Right? When you implement term limits on elected politicians, all you're really doing is increasing the power of the DC staff that's there, or the DC rats, as you just called them, because most people are just going to jump from office to office.
Yes.
And what happens is you give more power to those who are staff employees than you do the elected officials.
That is
because you're limiting their scope.
Well, that is if you have a weak, horrible incoming elected official who only relies on the DC staff to bring them in and put them into that office.
That's valid.
It is because of the elected officials that term limits wouldn't actually be, or I say wouldn't actually be, that puts a hindrance on term limits.
Well,
because if you put term limits, if you only allow these DC hill rats to be able to serve X number of years, or only be able to serve under a specific legislator that they are hired under,
can't do that. Can't do that. That's not
You
how employment
can.
works. Nope, that's not how employment works. Which is the mixed balance of it.
Constitutional amendment, yes, it could.
I mean, I guess because at that level, the sovereign can do whatever it wants. You know what I mean? But why would the sovereign do that? Because that limits the power of who controls the information. Then you have outside people controlling the information that was already there before.
In the hands of the state.
So again, we digress, because the point of this is that we've now migrated from what used to be a balanced budget to 12 bills that continue to fund the federal government, to now these 12 bills being wrapped into one called the Omnibus bill. And then from there, we continue to kick the can down the road. And when we finally have a shot to get back to a balanced budget, what do the Democrats do? They come in and they say, nope, we just need to do it because we know the Republicans are going to cut spending.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, because of the vehicle that the House Rules Committee had passed, allows for them to be able to concur with anything that the Senate passes. So that chairman came out and said, everything that they are going to want to do in 2023, the House Republicans, any kind of cut, any kind of funding cut is going to cut everything that both the left and the right wants via defense, non-defense, or just COVID, or any sort of thing along that line. They're going to cut that spending. So he's saying we have to pass it now in order to be able to have our mark on the upcoming fiscal year.
That's
the 2023 fiscal year.
And that's such a cop-out, because, like, you know, even a war halt like me, you know, will recognize that sending another $40 billion to Ukraine is ridiculous. And, you know, that will not do anything for the hurting American people who are here now.
Absolutely. So, I mean, think about this. You have veterans here in the United States that are living out on the street that can't get the help that they need because they're sending all this money overseas. Yeah. Imagine putting that $40 billion, investing it here in the United States in veterans outreach programs, and getting veterans off the street.
And that's one thing we talked about when we broke the story about the situations going on in the VA. I mean, like what would happen if, instead of hiring, you know what I mean, civils, like just citizens, to come into the VA's office, if you hired veterans to come in and help with the process? That would eliminate situations like the one we reported on.
Oh yeah. So I actually I read an article the other day about how the VA is now recruiting a lot of the tech people that have been laid off from some of these bigger social media giants and Amazon, Twitter, everything like that, to come on to their organization and help promote the VA. So
that's awful.
You're looking at some of the folks from Twitter coming on with the VA.
Well, like, that's awful, because you have software developers who are veterans. Mm-hmm. Why not hire them?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you have medical professionals who are veterans. Why not hire them? You have customer service people who are veterans. Why not hire them? Mm-hmm. But yet, let alone, once again, you know, I'm just gonna call it a spade. Democrats have come out, you know what I mean, and said that.
Say that I can't.
You know what I mean? Democrats have come out and they're only going to protect their own. Mm-hmm. When are we, as conservatives, or you as a veteran, you know, going to make it a priority that we protect our own?
That's a good question. I don't foresee that in the coming future, because veterans are such a small portion of the voting bloc, but it's a great platform to campaign on.
I mean, and I love us to death, but we can't stop infighting long enough to, like, see the bigger picture. But
a little bit of that. So one of the things that they're really trying to do, and cannot actually wrap my mind around how the Republicans are agreeing to this in the Senate, is that they are going to increase the non-defense spending by $56.3 billion.
Yeah, I don't even understand what that means.
So all of these social programs that go on across the United States, they're going to flood in $56.3 billion on top of what they had already flooded in, and that's including the America Rescue Plan and all these social plans and this new infrastructure plan that they passed, the Green New Deal Part 1 and the Green New Deal Part 2 Light. They're flooding in an additional $56.3 billion on top of that.
Because see, here's why I don't understand what that means, right? Like Joe Biden himself said that COVID's over, but yet in the spending package, there's COVID relief.
$19 million. Well, $19 billion worth.
You know what I mean? And then we start talking about these other, like Social Security's dead, y'all. Like Justin and I we pay into it, but we'll never experience it. Instead of continue to flood money into it, it's time that we continue, like we work at something at revamping our program.
Mm-hmm.
Like we need to revamp our social programs. The same thing we do with our tax code. Like if we know it's broken, fix it.
Well, my thoughts on that are kill the program as it is, pay back everybody that's paid into it, what they've paid into it, and then make it optional to pay into.
Which is an interesting concept. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. I had to see it on paper, but you know what I mean? Like we have to start thinking outside of the box again, because this continual reckless spending and deficit spending is going to be our detriment by the time the generation that's doing it now is long and gone.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. Well, I mean, it's already an expiring program.
Yeah.
We know that firsthand.
It's a pass-through account now.
Mm-hmm.
It was meant to be something that was built up, right, to where there was money that was set aside and put away, but now it's a pass-through account, and it's running at such a lull that they literally have to inject billions of dollars each budgetary year in order to continue to fund it. That's a problem.
Absolutely. So part of this whole 12 bill omnibus bill, or this 12 appropriations bill omnibus bill that they want to pass, is part of the NDAA. So they're actually trying to move up the spending on defense. What is it? It's almost, what is it? Almost 10%?
Yeah,
10% to $858 billion.
That's wild.
Yet they are wanting to continue archaic programs that have little to no actual interest or little to no actual advantage in today's type of warfare. I mean, they are funding the additional building of aircraft carriers, which are the slowest moving military massive target on the face of the planet. I mean, it's one of the easiest targets to hit. So they're going to continue building on, I think, that to the tune of almost $13 billion. A lot of this funding is going to go to the dark side, which we will never know what it's actually going to.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Well, the dark side, some of it being the off budget or blacklist funding for black site type of funding.
The classified.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking at a 10% bump in this. You're looking at, I believe it was a 4.5% pay raise in military rate, military pay, which I understandably, okay, yes, I completely get that because of the inflationary rate that's going on right now. The military deserves more pay than what they're getting,
and that makes it competitive.
Even now it's lower than what it should be, but still, if the Biden administration wasn't in office right now, we wouldn't be in this situation as it is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's not my lane, but I will say this: it makes no sense that someone who's putting their life on the line for our country makes less than, you know what I mean, a manager at Zaxby's. I'm sorry, that's just or any other fast food chain. You know, the risk reward is not the same, and the fact that the risk reward is even less for the fact that you're risking your life to protect us is disgusting. That's just it.
Well, especially when it's I think it's nearly $3 trillion of the money that has been given to the Pentagon is unaccounted for and can't be audited because they don't know what's going on.
I can't speak on that.
Yeah, there's nearly $3 trillion just in the past year that's gone to the Pentagon. They can't actually produce and audit even though the law says that they have to. They're still unable to do it. It's mind blowing. But moving forward off of that, they're also bringing in and giving $40 billion to Ukraine again.
Which I don't understand. Make a decision. Are we going to war or not? I feel like just being blunt with it. I feel like the Biden administration, like you're teetering on war, and you keep sending funding. You keep doing all these heinous acts with, and just NATO itself. Make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Because the entire European Union and the Western world were tired of you playing with it as a game, like it's a game. I mean, are you going to let them in NATO and we all go to war, or are you not? And then we just see what happens afterwards.
Yeah. So they're getting ready to ship them the several of the Patriot rocket systems that they have now, which the Patriot rocket systems are some of the United States' most advanced rocket systems that we have.
So explain that to myself and our listeners.
Well, I mean, so it is a very precise targeting system for, say, you have an incoming missile from Russia and you're in Ukraine. Well, these Patriot rockets can shoot down these missiles, or they can directly target a site in Russia.
So I am a major fan of Israel. Okay. And I have to say that before I make this next statement, because Israel is the one who invented this technology. And
we gave it a lot of it to them.
Okay. All right. Why are we the only ones who are participating at that magnitude? That's my question. That's always going to be my question. Why are we willing to be the only one out of all the NATO members to make such a egregious financial and weaponry sacrifice?
Well, I mean, our military budget that they're getting ready to pass surpasses every military budget in the entire world. I mean, by leaps and bounds.
But that's because we flood our market, right? And what I mean by that is like Nixon's famous saying is, we're all Keynesian now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because we use a Keynesian form of capitalism that allows us to print money as a sovereign and run a deficit. So why aren't the rest of them? You know what I mean? All of them have the ability to, but we're the only ones who are willing at a federal level to take that risk.
Yeah, because we give them money from ourselves,
which is garbage.
Yep.
And so, that's my whole point.
Especially when it comes to the issue of climate change. I mean,
don't even get me started on that.
We are now paying reparations for climate change.
Reparations. Democrats love the word reparations.
They do.
It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pay reparations for this. I'm gonna pay reparations for that. I'm gonna pay reparations because even though you didn't have the technology to produce anything that produced carbon emission, we have to pay you because we had the advancement in technology to produce carbon emissions. That's dumb.
Mm-hmm. Even though they benefited from our production of these carbon emissions.
And to go back again and I think I made this point multiple times, but I'm sorry, carbon emissions are supposed to be high. They were high beforehand. The Earth has been around for billions of years, or hundreds of millions, however, depending on when you think we started. But we're going through the life cycle of the Earth. And through the life cycle of the Earth, we were never supposed to have polar ice caps. They were supposed to melt at some point. This is the same thing that goes to the extinct dinosaurs. When carbon emissions dropped, we have to, as the human race, understand that if we as a species want to survive, we got to get off the planet. Period.
Well, I mean, think about it. We are. I mean, the Democrats can't even come up with an exact name of what they're doing up until recently. First, it was global cooling, then it's global warming, and now it's just climate change in general.
And the whole time, all of them are making bucks off of selling the big lie.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, here's the reality. Follow the money, okay? The moment that banks stop lending to Florida, the Bahamas, the islands off of Greece and Madrid, that's when we start worrying about climate change. Because if they're willing to lend money out in the billions of dollars for people to build $1 million homes and do land development out there, clearly we don't have a problem.
Yeah, especially former presidents that are building right on the coastline.
Like, you got a former president building in Hawaii, but he's saying we got climate change issues. You built like a multi-million-dollar home
On the coast
of an island that you say will be underwater in 20 years, but you got a 30-year fixed mortgage on it. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, things aren't adding up here.
No bank would lend you that money.
No, or at least no one that would be there or thinking that they're going to be around in 20 years.
Yeah, like seriously, like think about it. Think about this. This is the financial. This is the central banking system that's lending all of this out. You're not going to, you know what I mean? I'm not going to my local community bank to fund like a former president's house. I'm going to like Wells Fargo or something. Wells Fargo is not going to lend you money knowing that they're not going to get their full return on it. That's how you survive 200 years.
Yeah, and another, I guess, feather in the cap of this whole debunked climate science or this whole climate change theory, or at least from the American populace, is good old AOC's little documentary she just put out.
Failed.
Yeah. Put it out in just under 150 theaters across the nation and gained less than $80 per theater.
How many views do we have right now? We have more average viewers right now at this moment than she has on average theater.
For the opening weekend of her debut of her massive documentary she did.
That's insane. like when you put that on average, that's insane.
Oh yeah, but yet that's what they're putting their hat on. But another kind of what we're going to, or kind of one of the things we alluded to a little bit earlier, was the fact that they are pushing this agenda on the incoming Congress, the incoming House, which is the one that controls the purse strings. They are forcing them to abide by these appropriation bills, or at least that's what their hopes are on this. And by doing that, and we know that that's what they're doing because, like I said earlier, the chairman Leahy of the Senate Appropriations said we have to pass this because Republicans are not able to pass something that would be able to work within the American populace. So we have to do it.
Yeah, they feel obligated because they, for whatever reason, think they're better than what the American people have decided.
Exactly.
If the American people wanted it, they'd be in the majority, and they're not.
Exactly. But yes, but they still think that they have that purview simply because of the fact that they are in a lame duck Congress. And the fact that the House would take that up and pass a vehicle to expedite this process is beyond me, which goes back to another thing that we had been talking about earlier in other episodes, being that the whole fiscal year needs to be adjusted and changed,
which is crazy, right? And we've talked about this before. When things run like your average citizen runs January to December. Most businesses will either run from February to March or June to July. Some governments, though, primarily the federal government, some governments will run from September to October, which is strange. And the only reason I can really understand why you would do that is to offset, a form of tax intake when it comes to property taxes or anything like that. But that makes sense at a lower level.
We'll adjust the tax code.
Again, goes back to, if you got a problem with the tax code, if you got a problem with Donald Trump, change the tax code because he did nothing wrong. But yet everyone wants to say he shouldn't have. He just followed the rules. You can't blame someone for following the rules. So again, I say, you adjust that tax code, but they're following a fiscal year that makes this strange methodology of how they do things. And then even with that, they still cannot meet the budgetary restraints within inside of that. So you're supposed to have your budget ready by the end of September so you can kick it off October 1. And then here we are again at the end of the fourth quarter, and you still don't have a budget. And now you're scrambling, trying to put some funding together and saying, well, we don't trust who's coming in next. But even then, we still can't get it together. So we're going to kick the can for another week while we try to figure it out.
Although I will say McConnell's only good point in all of this is that he's saying that the Republicans in the Senate are going home on the 22nd. So if they don't have this finalized by the 22nd, then they're SOL.
Because we believe in Christmas.
Well,
hey, don't talk about my Kentucky boys like that.
Kentucky boys, you know, that's something in and of itself.
Ooh, sore subject, still sore.
A little bit of a sore. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of those guys. Anyway, moving on a little bit more with that, we do like to remind our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the productions that we do put on there. Make sure you're also hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a single episode, and you'll always be able to hear Jamie's infectious laughter and see that incredibly smiling face of his. Also, if you wouldn't mind, if you're able to, going to our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and helping us out with what you're able to, because every little bit goes an incredibly long way to really allowing Jamie and I to be able to spread our message to eventually be able to take over the world. Of which it's what the plan is.
I'm telling you, some people are going to take it real serious.
Well, they should.
It's fun.
They really should.
I'm getting bombed on Twitter anyway.
If you'll stay off TikTok, it'll help you.
No.
But with that in mind, let's jump into the next topic, and that is the grimy Grimes trade.
Wow. You know, I mean, what do you say to this? Like, wow. You won't go get every American citizen across the world, but you'll trade a terrorist for a basketball player who can't find weed in Russia. I don't even know how to answer this.
Well, the Biden administration would wholeheartedly disagree because he is not a terrorist, according to them.
Okay, but to literally everyone else in the world, he's a terrorist. But he's like, I didn't trade a terrorist just because he didn't want to admit that for what millions of people he and Kamala have imprisoned people for. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that
has imprisoned people for less than what he's done.
That's the thing that really upsets me. Okay, is for purely votes. And to have people think that they're doing what's in their best interest. They're leaving thousands of people in jail in America for less than what one basketball player did in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a problem.
Although Biden commuted the sentences or the federal sentences of anyone that
right before the election.
Yeah, exactly. Even though no one was actually being held on those, or at least that was the reason. That wasn't the majority of the reason why they were being held.
Correct.
He commuted those sentences.
He commuted the sentences of people who had charges less than the average person who had charges. That's like going to jail for a gram of weed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? When the majority of the people who were actually in jail for it were for more than that.
Oh yeah, like trafficking and arms dealing and human trafficking and yeah, you name it, they're in jail multiple years for it. So you had a lot of these Democrat leaders coming out and saying, well, it's okay because he spent the majority of his sentence in prison already, and we had to get this American hero back home. The Merchant of Death had spent the majority of his 25-year sentence in jail already, so we had to get our American hero back home.
My dad used to have a saying, and it was a lie, nothing for a Democrat to tell. And that's basically, you know what I mean? Like, they will say anything. Anything.
Yeah. I mean, the guy they had in prison was literally sentenced to this sentence that he had, this jail sentence that he had, because of the fact that he was selling arms to terrorists to kill Americans.
And we're not talking about like, here's the thing. When we say arms, I'm not talking about like, Buddy had a crate of AK-47s that he needed to unload. I'm talking, he was selling RPGs, and he had tanks.
300,000 AKs.
You know what I mean? Like this just wasn't a case that like he just popped up on one day, like Joe Blow over here in Shannon, Georgia did, and you know what I mean, sold them. Like this is someone who was selling heavy artillery to Russian and other like Taliban terrorist organizations to unload on American citizens. Mm-hmm. And here we are trading him.
Yeah, so they said we can't directly say that he has American blood on his hands. I can't say that he's got American blood directly on his hands. The people he was selling to may have American blood on their hands, but he doesn't have American blood on his hands.
Lie ain't nothing but for a Democrat to tell.
Oh man, that's like Democrats approving funding for abortions don't have the blood of fetuses on their hands.
Or how I saw something that made me real cringe the other day, and don't get me wrong, I think the ruling was right. Okay, but that's because of what I believe. But in a Democratic state that I'm not going to name, they charged the man with the death of 2 murders because the woman was pregnant. Now, when again did you change your mind?
It's a fair point.
Because if the baby if it's a child and a life inside the womb when it dies, so you can put someone in prison, why does that unborn child not have any rights?
Mm-hmm. That's a very fair point. Very fair point. So it's crazy to me to think that they left another American citizen there in jail, and they claimed that wasn't one that was on the table to be up for negotiation.
And he'd been there for 2 years longer.
Exactly, and he's a veteran as well.
He'd been there since 4 years longer. He'd been there since 2018. So you left someone who fought for our country, been in there since 2018, trying to stay alive in a Russian prison, but all of a sudden,
all for identity politics.
All for identity politics.
She's gay and she's black.
That's it.
Let's call it what it is.
That's it. It's insane. Mm-hmm. It's insane, and people like eat it up. People are like, oh yeah, they're doing the right thing, or
it's heroic,
or they'll try to dismiss the fact that here's another soldier, like here's a soldier, mm-hmm. another American citizen who's been in there forever. But you just want to bring it up because it's sorry he's been in there for years. Sorry he's been blah 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 blah. Like that's not the point. The point is that you didn't make a trade for his life as an American citizen, but you made a trade for this person's life as an American citizen because it fits your narrative.
For a known terrorist arms dealer.
And people are going to die because of it.
That's yes.
That's the scary thing about it.
So, and I heard an interview, and I know this was probably done as a propaganda deal. He came out and he was saying, America's not that bad. When I was in the prison, I spoke with a lot of the Americans that were there. They were very generous. They were very helpful. There's not a lot of difference between American and Russians. Americans were very curious about what's going on in Russia and all this other stuff. But the fact that even in a propo, he came out and praised America for what it was, when you have this other POS that just got back here that wouldn't even come out for a national anthem. And I guarantee you she's not going to again. But it's crazy to think that we traded a terrorist who now, according to what he said in this propaganda piece, or at least what I think is a propaganda piece, that he is at
reformed,
least communicable towards American ideals and everything. So for someone who hates everything that America stands for.
I mean, I know. And I will say this. Like, I mean, like, if he's an arms dealer in the American prison system, he was probably a king. So, of course, he feels like America's okay. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But, like, here's someone who, like, for the first time doesn't understand freedom, but yet we hadn't heard anything about you being glad to be back in America.
That's a very good question. That's a very good point. I have yet to hear the first thing where she is happy and rejoiceful that America brought her home.
And watch her find a weed dealer in Russia and go play over there again. Because here's the reality. The only reason why she was in Russia is because the WNBA didn't make any money. Mm-hmm. That's not anybody's fault, but the WNBA. If they advertise more, if they did more promotional stuff, they'd probably get more people to actually want to come out and watch their games, and they could increase the pay. But people are flying over across seas and, to other countries to play, because in a month over there, she'll make her whole salary what she makes here in the U.S. That's
which the NBA players do as well.
Which other players do, right? They don't make they make on par for the NBA, or they have a European Football League, which is basically like a D League for American citizens. And then same thing with soccer, right? Like you can go play internationally and make a little bit more money than you play in the MLS. But my whole point in being is that I don't even think this would stop her.
No, I don't either.
You know what I mean? Like if this trade gave her some kind of pardon in Russia, she'd be back tomorrow playing basketball because the money was right.
Mm-hmm.
And no lesson would be gained or learned.
Yeah, no.
And the reality is like you just can't go, like I promise you, if I go to Dubai, I'm probably going to end up being in my hotel room all the time because I won't break the rules. Like, I mean, any country that has Bugattis for cop cars, like, does not play. So you got to learn the rules before you go to somebody else's country, and then ask your country to bail you out. Like, that's ridiculous. That's bold. That's childish.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more on that. Yeah, if you're going to go somewhere else like that, if you're going to go to another sovereign nation, you need to be careful and at least the acknowledgement of what their laws and what their rules are. Kind of anti what America is right now, and that's something that we're about to get into, because a lot of these illegal immigrants that are flooding in here into the United States don't give a what about what our laws and our rules are.
Yeah, I think it's all planned, and we'll get into that.
But with that, we do like to make sure that we encourage our viewers to make sure they are hitting the like and the share button on any of our productions that we do put out there, and make sure that you're also subscribing to any of our platforms that you do that we put any of our productions out on. That way you'll never miss a single moment of any of the content that we produce, and you'll always be able to see Jamie's incredibly smiling face and hear that roaringly infectious laughter. And if you're able to, we encourage our viewers to also go to theconservativetalk.org and hit that tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and become a sponsor for Conservatives Talk today. That way, Jamie and I can continue to produce more of our content, as well as eventually be able to take over the world.
Yeah, I have no idea why he adds that, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean that is.
I mean, it's gonna happen.
If we have our way, it will.
It's just bold to say it out loud.
We are a bold show.
That's true.
So with that, let's jump into our next topic, and that being our borders deserve to be defended.
Well, because I'm just going to flat out say it, because we have some Republicans who just don't feel it's necessary to vote down ticket. The Democrats feel that they can go ahead and get away with everything, and immigration is the first key to it. I mean, I'm talking immediately after the runoff was over. Next thing you know, here is 1,000-person caravan.
Yeah.
That just unloads right there at the border.
2,500 people in a single day.
2,500 people in a single day. Most to happen in one single day at a time. And all that's going to happen is they have to be detained, processed, and released under the Biden administration. Almost to where it's designed. Almost as to where they had them sitting 40 miles away, and the moment it was secure, they said, all right, start sending the buses.
Sounds like a bit of a cartel deal to me.
Sounds like the Biden administration is working with the cartel in order to get it done.
Especially now that Title 42 is getting ready to end.
Which is another big point.
Mm-hmm. So Title 42, for those who don't know and aren't really aware of that, is a Trump era kind of executive order that says that anybody that is crossing over the border because of the massive public health issue is to be immediately returned to their country if there isn't extenuating circumstances behind what they're migrating for.
And now that's ending. Basically, the czar of the border has opened it up completely And what we've seen, the 2-3 million people that we've seen in the last year and a half is about to double within the half-life of that time.
It's to the point now to where even Gavin Newsom has come out and said something needs to be done about this because it is unsustainable.
Everyone hold yourself, because the psychopathic Gavin Newsom has agreed with something that we've all been trying to tell him since his tenure as governor of California.
Because it is overrunning their socialist system, and they're not able to afford all of the stuff that's coming.
Oh my God. It's like he finally opened his eyes to what we've all been telling him from the beginning. And no one's against immigration. But just like the tax code, it's a system that's broken that needs to be fixed. But they don't want to take the time to fix it. They want to argue about, I can't believe that the Republicans are going to get the budget. They'd rather sit there and kick the can on it instead of just passing a budget, dealing with it, and tackling something that matters.
It blows my mind that Gavin Newsom is actually against the lifting of Title 42.
He ain't got no choice.
Because of a federal court ruling.
Well, he don't have no choice. He's up the creek without a paddle at this moment. Because between the mass exodus from California, between like he's lost so many people in the state of California that like key districts for them are turning red. Like he sees the wave that's coming across him. And then he says dumb things like getting rid of fossil fuels by 2035. But yet he can't even yet in his state, they have 50 something blocks of homeless people. But he wants people driving like electric vehicles that they can't afford.
And he didn't say how many of these resource centers that they had, but 9 of their overall resource centers across the entire state of California are overrun with illegal immigrants. And he's saying that we cannot sustain this because the federal government is directing so many of these illegal immigrants into our state because we foot the bill for them.
And no one else will take them because everyone
not
else,
willingly.
Yeah, because everyone else says that, hey, we cannot support this or sustain this. But he's the one who came out and criticized every other governor who said something about it.
Yep. Yeah. The hypocrisy is tangible at this level.
A lie enough for a Democrat to tell.
So it's not just that we need this done because of the influx of these people or we need to secure our border and defend our border because of the influx of these illegal immigration or these illegal immigrants that are coming in. I mean, we also have to look at what they are also bringing in. Fentanyl being a massive one of them. There was an officer in Florida just today or early this morning that almost died because she was searching a vehicle and ran across fentanyl that was rolled up in a dollar bill. And they said that they suspect that the people inside that vehicle may have blown the fentanyl in her direction while she was doing a search on that vehicle. They had to give her 3 doses of Narcan just to be able to revive her. I mean, she stopped breathing. She was dead.
It's also like the sad story that was out of California, actually, where a government official, their kid was playing on the playground, and there just happened to be fentanyl on the monkey bars or whatever at the playground, and the kid was institutionalized because, like, the kid touched it. Like, this is serious, and that's how it's coming in.
Well, I mean, think about it this way: there was somebody here in Northwest Georgia that was hospitalized because they came out and touched the underside of their car door and trying to open up their car door. Somebody had laced the underside of the car door handle with fentanyl. They touched it and they were hospitalized for an OD. They almost died because of that. That was in Dalton.
And we've seen we've shown on the show before, like the tracking of how the cycle of it comes in through China, India, back to Mexico, and the majority of it's coming in through the Mexican border. Some of it's coming down through Canada, but the bulk of it is coming in through the Mexican border. And the more and more we do not fix our immigration process, the more and more we will see drugs like this or the next phase of it. At one point, it wasn't fentanyl. It was, cocaine, heroin. It was, methadone. It was all these other different drugs that were being brought in illegally. And we're going to continue to see that migration of them because we allow such free and open borders, to the south and the north. Like we only know certain places that come through Canada because that's where the checkpoints are. You come in through Maine, certain parts, and no one would ever know.
No,
because we don't even know where the line is there.
No,
there
are several. Yeah, it's very true.
There's certain lines on our northern border that we don't even know, like if it's United States property or not.
I think you're referring to Super Troopers 2 on that one, but
you're
not wrong.
I was actually thinking about this is the thing I follow on TikTok that talks about maps.
Don't tell people you're on TikTok.
Look, Google sold my information to China decades ago, just like it sold everyone else's. I don't know why anyone is just denying the fact.
Because I don't carry it around on my phone and allow them to see every incoming message.
You have Google. Google does that anyway.
Not every incoming message.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
If you don't think Google's selling your information,
I'm not saying they're not. I'm saying that not to the level. I don't carry around the actual Chinese spy software on my phone.
Back up a second, because you have a Apple phone, which is made in China.
Yes.
That already have it. I promise you.
But I don't agree to allow them to be able to steal my information.
So the way that this works is if you like any company that's done in China has 50% of it has to be owned by a Chinaman.
That's fine.
Or China person. And so the Apple manufacturing company may have 49%, maybe 49% owned by the American U.S. company.
Blazing Saddles moment here.
It ain't a Chinaman, it's a China person. I mean,
what am I going to do to you, James?
Who knows? At least I'm not speaking German today.
Well, at least there's that. But part of this, with the Title 42 being rescinded and not being able to move forward, is the fact that the Biden administration is now actually requesting an additional $4 billion in funding to be directed towards the border and helping these illegal immigrants to be able to be humanely housed, processed, treated, and sent wherever they desire to go throughout the United States.
So that went even further left.
$4 billion.
So you're just going to give everybody a check instead of, acknowledging the problem. The true democratic way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's so $2 billion is going to the Department of Homeland Security, and $2 billion is going to the Customs and Border Patrol.
They really are like pushing this whole, like, here's the model, right? It's the same thing China's doing. Crash the dollar and then give new money. And that's why that's one of the biggest problems I have with all these social programs that they're coming out with, like the whole like universal income, like that universal income, giving people money instead of solving the problem is the same thing that China's been doing under, communism for a long time, all to get to one point. And they're reaching that point as to where they've devalued their currency so much that they say, hey, we have this new digital currency and we're going to airdrop it to you. So now they've created their world currency. They're airdropping it to people. And by the way, we implemented social credit beforehand. So if you're not a good citizen, a good China person, then we're just going to take the money back. It doesn't matter what you stored. It doesn't matter what you hid. It doesn't matter if you can't hide anymore, because the only way that you're only going to receive money is if you have one of the phones that we gave you.
Canada did a little something like that too.
Yep. Season Bitcoin, season everything else. But all of these socialist, communist, hybrid countries are all leading to the same point. And we've done everything that we can to stop America from coming there.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, they've eaten it up. I blame Jack and Twitter.
Well, with that in mind, we do like to remind our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the productions that we do put out on any of the platforms that we do put out our productions on. Make sure you're also hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll always stay up to date on all of our content, and you'll always be able to see Jamie's incredibly infectious smile and hear that roaring laughter that he has that everybody loves so much. And if you're able to, go to our website at conservativestalk.org and hit that sponsor tab and help us out with what you're able to, because every little bit goes an incredibly long way towards allowing Jamie and I to be able to produce this content and continue to share it and promote it and get our message out as wide and far as possible to eventually be able to take over the world one of these days.
And make the world great again.
We will. We will make the world great again.
You love how I did that.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. So turning our direction towards more of a local issue. And so I want to ask your opinion on this. There is a company that is wanting to move into Rome, that is requesting into Rome, Georgia, that is requesting a business licensure and several bureaucratic leniencies towards allowing for a Bitcoin mining operation to be established here in Rome. What is your thought in allowing that to happen?
All right, so I got two major thoughts on this. One, you're totally changing the game and screwing the game up for a lot of people who are already doing this, because like this is one of those things to where like, why would you ask the government's permission? If you already had the technology, if you already had the background, if you already had everything else, why would you ask the government's permission?
I have to at that point with what they're wanting to do. Well, 6 major terminals that are going to have these massive fans on it that is going to create such a noise disturbance within an area that is zoned for heavy industrial usage.
I'm no snitch, but there are people already doing it. Okay, I want to be clear about that, right? Like, because like if you're not around anybody, pick a different property. If you got $6 million to blow on computers, pick a different property. All right, that's the first thing. Second thing is, I don't see an issue with this. This is one of the things that I have been advocating for in Northwest Georgia as a whole, because we have been so fixated on manufacturing for a long time. And as manufacturing starts to die out, we need to be more tech innovative with how we bring in businesses.
Yes.
So I think this is a great idea. I think this is something that we as a community need to be more mindful of, and something that we may need to seek out for when we go out and attract more businesses. It makes no sense, none whatsoever. I will never understand this, how a community with 4 colleges still is only from a business standpoint primarily looking for manufacturers from the outside to move in. We need to be more focused on home growing entrepreneurs, and then creating more, I guess you could call, the WeWork circuit type spaces, because there's a model for it, right? You move a business from someone's basement into a shared office space, and then as they grow and produce, you allow for government and different agencies to come in and help them produce. Once they build out of that space, then they can go into another space, and then you still have that support system from the chamber and other agencies to help them build out and find land to build their own facilities. And now you've homegrown a 1 to 2 person business into a 20, 25, 50 employee business, and they don't want to leave.
Yes, and I agree with 99.9% of that. Just the fact involving the chamber with it, because the chamber here in Floyd County, in my mind, is so tainted that it's beyond saving.
I don't think so.
Well, with what they've done and what they've sponsored and what they've gotten behind in the past, and the fact that they're continuing to do that is something in my mind that really they should be left out of all small business operations going forward with that.
I think an employee made a mistake. I think that employee is going to pay for that mistake.
but they're still employed.
Well, I mean, it's government. You can't really just fire
No, that's not government. That is a private. No, that is a private. That is a private business.
It's one of the. It's a hybrid.
Not government. It is not government.
We will have to agree to disagree because there are certain elements that a chamber has to follow that have government implementations inside of them.
But not when it comes to hiring and firing of individuals that make these egregious mistakes and continue to push it, and even after the mistake has been made, continue to follow and push that mistake.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with the fact of that something should happen. I'm saying that we shouldn't discount the chamber for one bad apple. That's all I'm saying.
Agree to disagree on that one then.
That's all I'm saying. But the bottom line is that chamber has values.
Terrible already.
Chambers have value. Chambers have value, and trying to get away from that is something that I think has damaged Northwest Georgia. We have to recognize that chambers have value, and outside of here, outside of here, regardless of whatever our opinion is, outside of here, when we start to entice businesses or industries to come in, they're not going to the average citizen when it comes to trying to find jobs. They're going to the chamber. So when we start, we can't have our cake and eat it too. You can't attack chambers and then turn around and say, why don't we have industry coming? Well, that's who's bringing your industry in. People aren't just going to look on a map and say, I want to go here. That's very rare. That's less than 1% of industry that comes into an area. The majority of it is because someone went out and tried to find someone and put a packet together and tried to entice them and put an incentive package together. That comes through your economic development and your chamber. So we have to be mindful of that, but we also have to be mindful of the fact that when we bring things in, they have to match our character. And I think that the character of Northwest Georgia is something that can be a more innovative technology type homegrown, software development place. This is perfect for it.
Well, I mean, one of the so in the past, Rome has actually been the home of the e-file system.
Yep.
It was developed, it was invented, and it was grown here in Rome, Georgia.
Yep.
I mean, Rome, Georgia has been the epicenter for a lot of very nationally used now technological advantages.
Yep. All the way back to, we don't discuss this, but back even when Barry was an all-girls school, this is where, Henry Ford used to bring his executives to, come up with a lot of the innovative, manufacturing things that led to the Ford dealership that we have today.
Could have left that it was an all-girls school and bring in exactly.
I had to. I had to. So I could tell the whole story, because you can't hide from the entire story.
But so one of the major issues involving this is the fact that a lot of citizens are concerned about the noise that these facilities are going to produce. So the county commission and the city commission have come up with ways that this noise would be mitigated and would be directionally challenged, or I guess directionally challenged, or directionally sourced and put out towards. You have these barriers that are going to be required to be used there. You're going to have foliage that is going to be required to go around the barriers. The way that the sound is going to be forced and channeled is going to go towards an unpopulated area. So I don't really see an issue or problem of allowing this to come in, especially with the benefit that these types of innovative things can bring to this area.
I agree. And look, here's the whole point of zoning. Okay. Zoning is how the government tells you what you can and cannot do on your property. That's the entire point of zoning. That's it. That's the entire point of zoning, whether we like it or not. Okay. And anyone who has an issue with what's done in HI, that's a problem, because government has said that these are the areas where heavy and light industrial is supposed to go. If the person who built your house has try to get a variance for it to where you can build a house near these areas, you just got to deal with it. And I'm sorry.
Well, if government says, then by all means, that's what we got to do.
What I mean by that is if you
Don't
back
make me
up,
pull up bureaucrat man again.
If you back up if your house is next to a place that has manufacturing behind it, I don't want to hear you complain about the noise. You made that decision.
Unless the manufacturing place moved in behind you after your house was established.
You should have checked what your zone was beforehand. You should know, but you should do better.
Rezoned.
You should do better due diligence.
Unless it was rezoned.
Which is hard to change from heavy industrial to light industrial. Most times that those things are set long before residential comes in. Those are set before residential comes in because you usually try to have them on the outskirts.
Not in Garden Lakes.
Technology Boulevard was already set.
I'm not talking about technology. This isn't technology. This is Redmond Road.
That was already light industrial. Houses were built around it.
Not with.
Go look at the land use map. Go look at the history of the land use map.
Well, you absolutely will because you're wrong on that one.
Nope. Go look at the history of the land use map.
You're wrong on that one.
Residential got a variance to be in certain those areas. Yep.
Nope.
We can debate this all day.
Well, we can, and I'm right.
No,
but
you're wrong.
No, not
Go look at the history of the land use map. One thing that Floyd County and our county commission and everybody else has been very good at is not varying for the land use map because of the purpose of where we are right now.
Except for chickens.
Nope. Uniform code update, and they got public input on that.
That was a dig at one of our county commissioners that just loves dealing with chickens.
I know, and I'm still upset about the whole "I'm right, you're wrong" thing because I know I'm right. But
no,
anyway,
you're wrong.
Yes, I am.
No, you're you're right. You are wrong.
No,
that's exactly. And I agree with you. You're wrong.
I'm right. You're wrong.
Thank you for acknowledging that, Jamie.
I'm right. You're wrong.
I
know you are, but what am I?
I'm rubber and you're glue. Whatever you say, bounce off me, sticks to you. How about that? Burn.
I love when we go back to third grade. Next.
And with that in mind, we'd like to make sure to encourage our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button, or the like button, the share button on any of our platforms that we put our productions on, as well as hitting the subscribe button. That way, you'll never miss a single moment of any of the content that we produce, and you'll always be able to see Jamie's infectious laughter, or see his infectious smile, hear that roaring laughter, and be able to acknowledge whenever he has to come back and eat crow for every wrong thing that he's acknowleded.
With
that in mind, let's jump right into our next one, and that is with the conspiracy corner and what Buck had to say about the ultra fabulistic flaming.
I don't even know. I don't even like. Damn, Pedo Peter, I'm sorry. I just couldn't help it. Like, he couldn't even go. What is this? What is this bill that Buck brought to our attention?
So it's the Marriage Equality Act is what it's called. It flew through the House, of course, and even Republicans in the Senate jumped on board and said, we have to get this passed.
Look, here's the thing. I'm not.
And it all stems from Roe v. Wade being overturned.
I'm not against certain things of this, but what I am against is the way that this was done and then the parade that happened afterwards. This is like they use this as like some groundwork for some really horrendous things, since we're talking the conspiracy corner. Like, he had registered sex offenders right there next to him at the signing of the bill.
Yeah, this is the vehicle that they will use in the future to gut every religious liberty bill
and exemption and everything.
Yeah, if you as a business or an organization feel what is going on is against your religious views, you will have to comply with this or you're violating federal law.
Which is the entire thing about it. That's the problem. Is because, look, and I do not care what anybody does in their own household.
Yeah, who cares?
I don't care who you love. I don't care who you marry. I don't care about any of that.
Well, Mary's a different story.
To a certain degree.
No.
To a certain degree.
No. Mary's a completely different story because marriage comes back to a religious perspective.
Oh my God. Everyone throws this up here. Okay. Civil union, because marriage is a religious term.
Yes.
Right. But whoever you union with, you know what I mean? It's the same. Okay.
No.
What I mean is it's the same because you're still tied to a person legally. Yes, it is.
No, it's not. You are standing before a reverend, or you're standing before a religious or an organization, or somebody who has been ordained to be able to provide the ceremony via your religion that you have. And if your religion does not agree with this, then it is not the same whatsoever. And marriage, as you just said, is an implicit religious ceremony.
So here's where we muddy the waters, okay? Because anyone who knows me, I'm very devout. I don't know how you call it something else though, because of how we've muddied this. Here's the problem:
a legal union.
You call it a legal union, right? And like so, in up until recently, the denomination that I was a part of my entire life, it was illegal for a ordained minister in our faith to even host a same-sex marriage. Okay. But getting ordained now is a 30-minute course online in the United States. I could get ordained today and marry whoever I wanted to tomorrow, which is why we have muddied like this is a process that has come down that led to what this is. And again, if your state allows it, I care less. It's for your state to decide, however any of that fits. It's not a blanket for the federal government. It's for your state. And that's just because I'm a states' rights person. If your religion doesn't allow it, then your faith should be recognized in saying that through this method, through this church, through this minister, we cannot do X, Y, and Z. If you find another way to complete that objective, whether it be going to another state, another country, finding someone who took a 30-minute course, like that's a whole other thing.
I don't disagree with you on that.
Getting muddied in like, is it marriage, civil union, blah, blah, blah. Legally, it's a civil union, but I mean, like, no one's going to call it that. Ain't nobody going to call it that.
You know where I stand on the whole technicalities of all this. But yeah, the fact that now, and it came from nothing that this became a bill that had to be passed. It absolutely had to be rammed through. It had to be done based upon the Roe v. Wade or the overturn of the Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs case.
Because they're bold now.
Because Justice Thomason came back and said these are other cases that need to be looked at based upon the legal interpretation and the ruling that was made that established these rights that had no basis in actual law.
And that's the thing that kills me. That's the thing that kills me the most, right? Because, like, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't like his wife, okay? But you go, you know what I'm saying? Like everyone who came at and said, Jamie, how does someone who, this is just for me personally, how does someone support Justice Thomas, the conservative motto, and everything else, knowing that they're getting ready to come after interracial relationships and marriages? And I'm like, you honestly believe that someone who's in a 30, 40 plus year interracial marriage is going to pass a law or to make a decision on a law that would nullify him being tied to the love of his life? You honestly think that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because there are people whose minds are so twisted, especially on the left, that think that that's what this is about. And it never was about this. This is about the rule of law itself.
It's a marching cry. They came after women's rights to choose. Now they're going to come after couples' rights to get married, which is complete
the furthest thing from what anybody's doing.
Absolutely.
It's almost like setting the record straight and saying that these are the things that the federal government was originally supposed to establish.
Yes,
these are things that were supposed to be states' rights that the states and the citizens of those states have the right to decide on for themselves.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, but like if Alabama decides something that's different from the state of Georgia, then I'm just gonna keep my, black button state of Georgia. I
knew you were going that.
I'm not going to live in the state of Alabama. And that's how it should be. Like, what's best for Georgia is not what's best for Alabama. What's best for Florida is not what's best for South Carolina. And it's time that we recognize that. And it's time that we stop saying and letting, the overpopulated New York and California and even DC, who doesn't really even have a vote, but everybody lives there, decide, you know what I mean?
For now.
Decide what's best for the rest of us.
No, I don't disagree with you on that at all. Yeah, it's crazy to think that they saw this opportunity, and we knew that they would do this, especially with the concurring opinion that came out with Justice Thomas, that they would take this and run with it and say the Republicans are trying to get rid of interracial marriage because they're all racist. They're trying to get rid of gay people being able to get or have civil unions because they're all homophobic. Nobody cares. Nobody's coming after. Nobody has anything to do with that. We're saying you do you, we'll do us.
Yep. And I
you
promise
stay in your home and keep it with that way. That's fine. Nobody cares.
I promise you. Oh, right. We have way more bigger problems to worry about than whatever y'all. You know what I'm saying?
A little bit.
Like, you know what I mean? We're worried about other things that like
stopping this massive omnibus bill that's been trying to force down everybody's throat,
and making sure that like. I'm not even going there. There's just a lot more things that we're worried about than who's married to who in the middle of nowhere, California. And the fact that they're trying to make this an issue or trying to shove something like here's another thing. We still have yet to know what's all inside of that bill. And they're notorious for adding things, which is why it was voted down the first time. So everyone gave Republicans a whole lot of crap because the first time they tried to put up a marriage equality bill, that the majority of Republicans voted against it. And we took a lot of heat for that. But the reality is no one read the details of that bill. And inside that bill, they were doing all types of outlandish things that had nothing to do with marriage equality. They had green energy deal things inside of that bill. They were trying to tie tax credits to other things, other industries inside of that bill. But the reality is that they will bury things and say, oh, look, they don't care about people. They don't care about who they marry. They care about who they marry. They want to go take us back 60 years when that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, I mean, that's Democrat playbook 101.
Yep.
But yeah, they are literally trying to change the definition of just about everything. And that, I mean, that even includes the Cambridge Dictionary and dictionary.com. So the Cambridge Dictionary has come out and they have put out their new definition of what a man and a woman is. And I want to quote this verbatim. It says, and this is for the definition of what a woman is: an adult who lives and identifies as female, though they may have been said to have a different sex at birth. Dictionary.com came out and said the word of the year for 2022 is woman. And they said that it is an indeterminable characterization of a person.
You know what's crazy is...
And you had drag queens standing right next to the president while he was signing this piece of legislation.
Who have sex offender charges, which is the mind-blowing thing. Not just drag queens who have sex offender charges.
Yes.
Here's the thing that's always blown my mind, right? Dictionaries have always been so fluid that this doesn't surprise me. I hate that it's happening, but it doesn't surprise me. One thing that I always remember when it goes back to the definition, when it goes back to dictionaries and how they change the definition of things over time, is looking at what unicorn means. Because there's a lot of opposition that atheists and non-believers come to us Christians about when it comes to the definition of unicorn, because unicorn appears 8 or 9 times inside of the Bible.
Yep.
And they always want to say, how can you believe in this when they start talking about unicorns? Over time, through the definition, through dictionaries, the definition of a unicorn has meant a horned horse-like feature, whatever. So everyone thinks of this mystical beast. But truthfully, if you go back to even as close as the 1800s, you see the definition of a unicorn refers to a rhinoceros.
Mm-hmm.
And when they start talking about uni and bihorn animals, they're talking about rhinoceroses. So when you go to the Bible,
is it rhinoceri? Maybe
rhinoceri.
Who knows?
I don't know. But when you go back to the Bible and people are imagining when they're reading this tales in Vacation Bible School, they're thinking of a mystical one-horned horse, and they're like, this has to be fiction, when the reality is they're talking about how rhinoceri, anyway, how they made it onto the Noah's Ark and became part of the creatures that we have today. And it's just one of those things to where, once again, the dictionary and the people who are the head of the dictionary have just proven that they web and flow with whatever's popular and whatever media tells them to.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. It does mention it, I believe, like you said, 8 or 9 times, specifically around the Egyptian and African area. And that is where rhinoceros live.
That's it. And the uni and bihorn creature that they refer to, that they were riding in and out.
Of which we know the pharaohs at the time held a lot of these as pets.
And they were the oxen that they carried through. So people were thinking that they're riding one-horned horses when really they're riding rhinoceroses. Rhinoceri, whatever.
Honestly, I have no idea. I just threw that out there.
It's like
one of those stumbling blocks.
Syllabus, syllabi.
Yeah. That's the reason why I thought that. That's what jogged my memory of that. But with that, as every great thing must inevitably come to a conclusion, we have reached the end of this episode today. That being our first actual live show that we have ever done.
Can't believe y'all taught me into this.
A little bit of that. And with that, we like to make sure that we encourage all of our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the productions that we do produce, as well as hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll always stay up to date with all of our content. You'll always be able to see Jamie's incredible smile and hear that wonderfully infectious laughter, even though he's wrong most of the time. We
delicious.
also like to encourage our viewers to go to our website at conservativestalk.com and become conservativestalk.org and become a sponsor today to help Jamie and I to be able to continue to spread our message, even though Jamie's mostly wrong with it, and help us eventually become able to take over the world one of these days.
You're never going to let this go until we've pulled
and then we want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors, and Net News Network being our first one. So you can find Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net. We also encourage you to check out Veterans for America First, as well as their media arm, Vet Voice. So, Jamie, with that in mind, do you have any closing thoughts that you would really be able to contribute to the greater good of society, even though you're wrong most of the time?
Pull up Unicode.
We can't do that right now.
Pull up Unicode. We're going to see who's wrong.
We will in the future.
We'll go back to the land use map.
Except that's not in Unicode.
Yes, it is. Oh my God, I'm done.
You're right. You're wrong.
The land use map is in Unicode. It's the whole uniform code.
You have the actual map that would have gone back to the establishment of Garden Lakes in that area of where it's going back to the.
You can go back
19th century.
All right, we're going to the courthouse. We're going to the courthouse.
Oh, so first it was in Unicode. Now we're going to the courthouse. What else do you want me to do?
We can pull up the code and see the history of it with the code. But by God, you can go. If you want to be historically accurate when it comes to what the land use map was,
literally what the entire argument was about.
That's fine. We'll go to the courthouse. Barbara, we're coming to see you.
I'm not even gonna make a comment. It was right on the tip of my tongue, and then I decided not to say that.
What my final thought is I did this and only said one cuss word. I didn't think I could do it. Neither did Justin or anyone who actually watches our show.
There's a lot of edits and bleeps that go into this. Jamie's just wrong and has a trash mouth.
I just say whatever needs to be said, and I didn't speak German, not once.
You did. You refrained from using German. I'm proud.
I only said that we had to lay Stacy the pastor one time, let it rest. You know, I didn't go over the top. I think we can do more live shows.
We're gonna have to, obviously. But with that, we want to say thank y'all for watching, and we will see y'all soon.